Thank you very much for accommodating my schedule. My name is Pete Yamasaki, so I guess everybody's wondering, why is someone with a Japanese name standing up here? Well, I've been working for Druva for the last 5 years. Druva was founded in Pune, and I was actually going to have one of our founders speak, but he had a conflict, so I'm going to step in and speak to everyone here. So thank you very much for taking your time to listen. So let me tell you a little bit about Druva. And can we get, is there a clicker for the slides? Oh, it's up here. So just a quick show of hands. How many people have heard of Druva? That's good to see. I see about 25%. And hopefully next year when we're back here, everybody's going to raise their hand. So Druva was actually founded in India, in Pune itself, in 2008. We did move after getting invested in by Sequoia Capital back around 2010 to Silicon Valley. We are now a global company. We have offices in London, several in the US, Singapore, Japan, and we're continuing to grow from there. We have over 4,000 enterprise customers today, over 100 petabytes of data under management in our cloud. We're a top 5 Amazon storage partner, and we already have 10% of the Fortune 500 companies using our products. So, data. Data is the new oil. Companies live and thrive on data. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. Every company today is an IT company. Companies have doubled the amount of data that they have under storage that they have to manage by 50% in the last 24 months. But even with the solutions that people have in place today, when something happens, whether it's a ransomware attack, whether it is corrupted data, accidental operation, it's not always that reliable to get it back. 76% of the companies analyzed by analysts have had failure getting that data back. So data protection is key. When we talk to a customer, data protection is the last thing people want to talk about. It's the least sexy. But when you have an outage, when you have a problem, it becomes the most important thing. You got to get your business back and running. So if we look at where that data is, according to Gartner, by 2020, 50% of that data is going to be outside of the data center for most industries. And that data is going to all kinds of places. It's going to endpoints. It's going to branch offices. It's starting to go to cloud applications. Office 365, Google Suite, Salesforce, Box, Slack. Just a quick show of hands. I know banking can be very conservative. How many companies here have started to move to Office 365 or Google Suite? Okay, about 30%. I doubt that will be 100% by next year when we're here, but we do predict that that's going to grow significantly. And then companies are starting to write their own applications in the cloud. They're starting to use Azure. They're starting to use AWS for test and dev, and starting to move some of their critical workloads into the cloud as well. So that data is moving to all kinds of locations. But along with all these cloud applications and this migration of data to many locations comes risk that you have to manage. You have to manage that data loss and corruption in lots of locations. Risk to business continuity. And probably even more difficult is regulatory non-compliance, right? So a big thing that has hit Europe in the last couple of years has been GDPR. Knowing what data you have, knowing where that data is, and being able to manage that data, being able to erase that data if you need to. Legal purposes, auditing purposes. And now there's stricter fines and sanctions coming with that. And India is going to have its own GDPR type laws put in place very soon. So these things are very important. So when we really look at it, your data is now just not on servers, it's starting to go to all different places. Your endpoints, your remote offices, SaaS applications, you have to start worrying about all these things. So you have to know where your data is. You have to be able to see your data. And that's a bit about what Druva is all about. So let me just give a little bit of a history on data protection, data backup. So if we really look at the history over the last 35 years, it started, on the far left there, Backup Exec. I'm sure everybody here in IT has heard of Backup Exec. Owned by Veritas today, but it was originally written, I think, by Seagate, right? And when they came out, they were the first real enterprise application that's still available today. How do we back up Windows workloads? A few years later, there was NetBackup. And NetBackup said, let's take that to scale. How do we provide backup across the network? So now I can manage that centrally for multiple servers, multiple workloads. And then Commvault came along, and they introduced synthetic full backups, which made it practical to back up much larger workloads at scale. In 1999, Avamar and Data Domain both came out around the same time, and they introduced deduplication. And deduplication further made it more efficient for how to move that data across networks and how to store that data. And then we move a few years forward, and then Veeam. What problem set did Veeam try to solve? VMware was getting really popular, and the legacy backup solutions didn't have a good solution for how to protect virtualized workloads. Veeam saw that opportunity and built a purpose-built application to solve virtualized workloads. And now more recently, you started to hear about companies like Rubrik and Cohesity. And what they're bringing to the market is simplicity. They're saying, instead of set up all this infrastructure, here's one box. And you could plug these boxes in, you could scale up. But it's still hardware you have to buy, you have to scale, you have to manage. But they are bringing a lot of simplicity, which further improves how you do data backup and data protection. And where Druva has come in is we looked at the cloud, and we actually started our journey to the cloud as a company in 2011. We worked with AWS, and this was a CIO project, a CIO office project. And we said, let's see if we can make a cloud-native version of our product, meaning let's not just take our software and run it in a VM. Let's rewrite this thing from the ground up on top of a platform and see what we can do. And what we built was very interesting. We decided to bring it to market in 2013. And I'll tell you, the global market wasn't yet ready for cloud. But very quickly, we started to see acceptance and interest in the US, then Europe. And over the last year and a half, we're starting to see a lot of acceptance now in the India market as well, too. And if I go back 2 years ago in most of APAC, people weren't ready to talk about cloud, where today, every single conversation we have is about cloud. And what do we get with cloud? Number one is great simplification. It's a turnkey solution, nothing you need to install, nothing you need to manage. But what's more interesting is what this cloud platform allows us to do. We'll talk a little bit about that. So if we look at a legacy approach, it probably looks something like this, but if you have a lot of data, it's going to be much bigger and you're going to have lots of copies of this. Multiple levels of servers, deduplication servers, software. In the BFSI industry, you guys are going to have to worry about compliance. You have to keep your data for 3, 5, 7 years, if not longer. And sometimes you have to audit that data. You have to get that data back. So as your companies grow, your data protection, your backup, your archiving architecture gets very complicated and very big. So what we're trying to do with cloud is greatly simplify that. So I talked about some of the vendors who are trying to provide appliance. So they do reduce this and they bring this down to a single appliance, but it's still something you have to manage. When we get to cloud, we want to eliminate this complexity. And if I was to say what Druva does in a nutshell, is this is what we do. We give you a true SaaS application, the same experience you would have with a Salesforce.com, with an Office 365. When a Druva customer comes on board, their admins log into a GUI, they configure your backup requirements, your backup policies, the agents get deployed onto your servers, and immediately back up to the cloud. There's nothing you have to manage on the back end. Now, cloud's a buzzword. Everybody has a cloud solution. So it's really important to understand the differentiation. I'll get to that in a moment. So this is what Druva looks like. When you become a Druva customer, this is the first page you log into. And you can manage all your workloads globally. You might just have business in India, and you can say, I'm going to be backing up directly to our India cloud, which is based in Mumbai. But if you're a global organization, through a single pane of glass, you get visibility to your data no matter where it is. And you can manage that centrally. But keep that data segregated and stored in the locations that you need it stored, whether it's the US, whether it's different countries in Europe, whether it's Australia, whether it's India. So you have complete control of where that data is going to be. Another advantage of cloud and why we can do what we can do is it gives us economies of scale. Today, if you do on-premise backup, you have on-premise applications, you're worrying about your platform and infrastructure. You're worrying about your application level. And then you also have to provision it and manage it. With economies of scale, as Druva, we're taking care of the bottom two items. AWS gives us the platform, which gives us the SLAs, the scale, the performance, the security. On top of that, we wrote our application, we manage our application, we have an operations center that operates 24/7. And because we're experts in one application, and one application only, we're able to monitor this 24/7. We're able to provide the best possible security around this. And as a customer, you don't have to worry about everything below that. You're responsible for setting your policies and deciding what you want to have backed up. So that's the simplicity. That's the advantage that you get out of a cloud architecture. So as I said, everybody's talking about cloud today. If you go to the legacy vendors, they'll say, yes, we do cloud. But what does it mean to do cloud? What most people are doing is they're taking their old legacy software and they're hosting it in a VM, in a cloud, whether it's AWS, whether it's a service provider. The advantage is it's a managed solution. The disadvantage is that it doesn't have the advantages of cloud. If you have to scale, someone's going to have to spin up new virtual machines. Someone has to manage it. It doesn't have the elasticity. It doesn't have the performance of cloud. So going back, Druva is a cloud-native platform. We're purpose-built from the ground up as a cloud solution. So I'm going to go pretty quick here. I think my time is running up. But two advantages from cloud. Number one is what we can protect. We can protect endpoints, laptops, desktops. As you move to cloud, as you start using Office 365, as you start using Google Suite, Salesforce, we protect that natively. We protect your data center, your servers, your virtual machines, your databases. And as you start using infrastructure as a service and platform as a service, we can also protect that. So first and foremost, we provide data protection. The legacy, that traditional stuff you always have to do. The backup, the ability to recover, the ability to archive. And how we're different than the legacy vendors is we are now doing this as a SaaS, as a turnkey solution. But where we're really interesting is what we do beyond backup. Because now we have this data in a platform. We have elastic compute. There's so much more we can do with this. If I could just have one more minute. So now we get to data governance, compliance, e-discovery. If you need a new collection, if you want to do a legal hold on a user, rather than having to go into each of those individual applications, a single legal hold that an IT admin can run in 1 minute will collect all that data. This helps in your auditing. This helps for legal purposes and legal collections. We also are into compliance. So if you want to monitor your data and find out, do I have sensitive data, personal information, account information, personal records that shouldn't be on certain devices or on certain servers, as we're backing that up, we're able to monitor that and highlight those compliance violations. And then we get into data intelligence, because now we have this data lake. So we're giving you visibility across all of your data. So we want to now give you tools to understand the data that I have. And as you start moving to all these applications, giving you broad visibility and control of that data. So in the, on the basics, backup archiving, disaster recovery, data loss prevention, malware and threat protection, e-discovery enablement, data compliance and auditing, and search and analytics. So it's because we've built this platform in the cloud that we're able to do all these things. And this is what we're focusing on in a company, and this is what this platform allows us to do. So 3 things I'd like you to remember about Druva and how, what is it we do and how we're unique. Number 1, we've simplified data protection by making it a turnkey SaaS application. Number 2, we give you the ability to protect data across all your modern data sources, whether it's devices, whether it's virtual machines, whether it's cloud applications like Office 365, or applications that you're now running in AWS itself. And then getting value out of your data. It's not just sitting on cold storage on tapes. We help you see that data. We make it very easy for you to do more with that data. Find files, pull data back very quickly. So that's Druva in a nutshell. We'd be happy to talk to you afterward. And if I could just have my team stand up real quick. I've got Sandeep from our product management team. I've got Bebev, one of our sales engineers, and Jeet Panda. Thank you very much.